Thank you very much for inviting me back here to give you a little bit of an update on what's happened since I was here last year with our research program. And the first thing, now that we've already had a year under our belt and we've seen how our students have done, I want to emphasize that again, this is the research program. Notice it's not the science research program, and that's something that some students and some people are always a little leery of. Oh, this is science. It's not. There's a lot more to it than science. So what are our students researching? What can they research? And of course, biological sciences are number one on the list, and that's a lot to do with where we are, being next to a world-class facility like Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, which is incredibly generous with their time and personnel in working with our students. They can work on environmental science. They can work on physical sciences such as chemistry, physics, astronomy, etc. Engineering. Broad area of research goes into civil engineering, biomedical engineering especially, all these new products that are available for prostheses, all these medical applications. A lot of our students are interested in behavioral sciences, sociology, psychology. Why do we act the way we do? Why do we make certain decisions in advertising, etc.? Political science, it's a big election year now. Polls, how are polls constructed? Why are certain questions asked? How are they asked? Again, a lot of our students have interest in these areas here that aren't your typical science research students from up on top. And two areas that we're looking into more and more are computer science research. So many of our students are into games. They're into all of them on their iPhones, iPads nowadays, as well as mathematics research, which are smaller areas but nonetheless very viable. And we have many students who are very gifted in these areas. We have a strong computer science program. We also have a very strong math program, mathletes, etc. So we can kind of integrate these various programs and bring in the best of the best and kind of bring them under this umbrella in a sense. This is a little roadmap that I showed you last year, if you remember as well. And I've added a little bit this year based on some discussions I've had with certain teachers. So again, my program starts with Introduction to Research 1. That's an overall course, teaches the ideas, the fundamentals of how to do research, what research is, how to search literature, etc., etc. And based on last year, the vast majority of students did go to Research 2 rather than ending after Research 1. A few did, but the vast majority did continue to Research 2. This is the spring course, spring half-year course. And here, again, they have a choice. They can continue independent research the second year or more, as the case might be, or again, they can end. And again, certain students did end, but a significant number did continue on to do independent research this year. And here again, we have the divide where they can do in-house research, meaning right at our own high school, or they can go somewhere outside to do their research. Most here have chosen to do their work at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. Recently, I've talked to Ms. McLeese, who's our computer science teacher, and we've kind of decided, or not really decided, but have worked on this idea of bringing in some of the younger computer science 1 and 2 students and having them have a side pathway into research, where again, there's good students, they're talented students, and they have certain interests, which again, we can integrate into the scheme here. Also, there are some students that are taking AP computer science, and those are a little bit older students, maybe 11th graders, and here we're thinking that, well, some of them maybe want to go this route and then come down, but some of them might be so advanced already in computer science that they can go right into independent research. So this is an avenue we're kind of exploring. We haven't done this yet. Maybe we'll look into it for next year or when we get around, but this map is pretty much intact from last year, and so far it seems to be working quite well. So I want to spend the bulk of this time talking about the students, and they're the stars of the show. They're the ones that are doing all this hard work, sacrificing time and going to the labs. This is a program that's been in existence for over 20 years now. It's called Partners for the Future. This is the Cold Spring Harbor Lab's official high school student science research program. They only take seniors into this program. You apply in the spring of your junior year. It's a competitive process, and if you are accepted, you work there then your senior year up until about the end of March. Currently, we have 3 students that are working in there. We have Angad Anand, who's working in the Zader lab, who's working on neurobiology. He's studying rats. He puts electrodes into rats' brains and watches their behavior when there's certain stimuli applied to them. Charlie Bill is working in the Lippman lab. He's studying tomato plants, how to get tomato plants to produce more tomatoes per plant, world hunger type of issue. Billy Smith is working in the CAPEX lab. He's working with mice. The work that they're looking at is adverse stimuli. What turns you off from doing something? How do you tell a mouse, how do you kind of convince it that's not the right thing to do? some of these things sound very strange, trust me, I understand that, but this is real research. This is not, you know, building your baking soda vinegar volcano and seeing it bubble up in your lab. Now, this is really world-class research with Nobel laureates, with other very, very high-level people. So 3 of our students that are independent now are partners to the future. This is the maximum that Cold Spring Harbor Lab will take from any one school district in 1 year, 3. So we've maxed this out. Now, what about other students? Well, we have 7 other students that have been placed into positions at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. And you can call these private placements, backdoor placements, friendship placements, something of those nature. And you kind of noticed one theme seems to come up over and over again. It's neurobiology. That's unquestionably our students' biggest interest right now, rather than some of these other areas. So the reason why some of these are in yellow and some of them are in white is that the ones in yellow are not seniors. These students are all 11th graders, the ones that are in yellow. So they've already started as 10th graders in many cases working in these labs. So they'll have good 2 years or more even to work there by the time all is said and done. Madeline is working in the Zong lab. She's working with fruit flies. And her experiment really is, what do fruit flies want more, food or sex? That's really what it comes down to. Which pheromones stimulate them more, those that come from food or those that come from opposite sex fruit flies? Julia Bidry, who was at the competition today, worked on protein crystallography. She crystallized a protein that is used in gene regulation. It's got a lot of implications in disease processes. Ryan Bucelato is working in the Molly Hamill lab, their husband-wife, Chris and Molly. Bioinformatics, he's a computer guy, and he really doesn't want to work with rats or mice or fruit flies, so he works with computers. All of these labs generate incredible amounts of data, and somebody needs to crunch that data and make sense of that data. So that's the kind of situation that he's in there. Christina Carmy is working in the Wong lab. She's also working with mice, and she's studying the behavior of certain neurons in our bodies that we have a lot of when we're young, humans including mice, but then they disappear as we get older, and they make certain connections, and once that connection is built, they kind of disappear. Gabrielle Ewald was at the competition today. She's working in the Shea lab, and she's working with mice as well. And what she's doing, again, is more of a pheromone-related work. Why do certain parts of the brain get activated with certain odors and vice versa with other odors? Ben Israeli is working in the Austin lab, and again, neurobiology, but more, he's another computery type of guy, and he's working more with automating certain processes that they use in the lab regularly. So he's not so much working with the mice, he's working after the fact, analyzing the data and trying to automate some of this work. And Amanda Sajewski is working in the Martinson lab, and she's working with plants as well, with a plant called Arabidopsis. It's not the prettiest plant in the world, but it's used a lot in labs. So these 7 are all working at the lab. They're going there several times a week, and they're all working at their own pace and coming up with their own work here. So we have some students that are working at the DNA Learning Center, which is right at the end of Goose Hill Road here, I'm sure all of you know. And these 3 all were at the science competition today, and they worked all summer at Target Rock National Wildlife Refuge up in Lloyd Neck. What they did was they dug up a little cubic foot of mud and then wanted to see what kind of animals and organisms are living in that cubic foot. And they used this idea of DNA barcoding, which is pretty much the same idea as when you go to a supermarket and your products get scanned. We have these little sections of DNA that seem to be very indicative of who we are, what species we are. This is very interesting work. It's used in a lot of applications already, such as determining are certain counterfeit products being made, is the fish that you're buying in the fish market really what you think it is, et cetera, et cetera. And so they pretty much worked at the high school as well as at the DNA Learning Center, but not at the lab itself. And then we have other students that are doing other work that's not really lab related. For instance, Sarah Chow is working on a computer science project. If you ever notice in advertising, these little squares with squiggly lines in them, well, that's what she's working on. They're called quick response codes. Emily Silver is working in epidemiology. She actually was a national semifinalist last year in a competition, won a nice scholarship for her work. Last year, what did she study? She studied, I don't remember, but this year I know what she's studying. She's studying the effect of income and age of home on lead poisoning in children. So she's taking data, crunching the data, and seeing if there's correlations between certain diseases and certain cause and effects. And this is one of our youngest ones. She's a 10th grader only, but she's actually come up with a very nice little microbiology product that addresses common bacteria that we see in our house and related to how well certain disinfectant products that are sold over the counter are in combating these various bacteria and germs. So she's only like the 10th grade. So these are some of the other people that are involved in independent right now. Competitions. I spoke about that quite a bit last year, and these are actually now not theoretical possibilities, these are actually competitions our students have entered this year. We did have one student, Julia Bidry, entered Intel STS, that's one of the really big ones, and we had 5 students at this one, the International Science and Engineering Fair, which was just today, as Dr. Wolanski already told you. This is at Stony Brook coming up in March. We had several students enter the DuPont Essay Contest, Long Island Science Congress, I think we have 6 students going to that. American Society of Human Genetics, we have a whole bunch of students here. Again, I don't know the exact number. American Statistical Association competition, we have a couple of students. And the Protein Modeling Challenge, which is at Stony Brook, we have some students there as well. So these are all that students have already entered in our program. Last year I said, well, these are all possibilities. These, in fact, are now competitions that they've actually entered. And they're all in progress. The only one that we know is Intel STS. I'm sure all of you read in the paper how that went this year on Long Island, at least, which we did very, very well. Julie did not advance in that competition, but these are others are all pending results still, so we'll see how that all goes. So this was today, this was Valentine's Day, early half the day at the Crest Hollow Country Club, and these are 3 of our students who presented their work. And the posters are actually in the back of the room, that if anybody wants to see them on the way out, you're more than welcome to. I'll leave these here all night. This is us at Target Rock digging in the mud and dirt there, looking for what we can find, and this is them today presenting their work. And the way it works is that the students are in front of their poster, just like the 3 that are back there, and they wait for judges to come around. And these judges are all scientists, professional people, and they let you speak for a few minutes on this is what I did, this is why I did it, this is where I think this will lead to, and then they'll have some questions for you. And the questions can be very, very difficult questions, or they can be very simple questions. And as always, the judges, you know, you have some nice judges, and you have some very, very rigorous judges. And these 2 students had about 2 most rigorous judges that I saw there today, who are our little guests there. Those 2 really grilled our students hard. I mean, I hope they survived it. It was rough. So, but in all honesty, we were very, very happy, all of us, that Dr. Wolanski, Dr. Bernhardt came by today to see what goes on there. And there were over 500 students from Long Island there, truly gifted, talented, hard-working students, and we had 5 of them there. So we went from 1 last year to 5 this year, and that's, I think, pretty good progress for 1 year. And they had fun. You know, that's the main thing. They worked hard, but when they were there today, the camaraderie with students from other schools, amongst themselves, it was a fun time for them. They had an enjoyable event, and certainly so did I. Okay, so where are we going with this? Again, 1 year, I think we've made some nice progress, but what are we going to do about it in the future? And I think one of the biggest things is recruiting students. We need to keep a constant supply of new students coming into the program. So one of the things we did was, there are currently 5 accelerated living environment classes for 8th graders at the high school, or at the junior high school actually, I guess. And I went there along with some of the current independent research students to talk it up a little bit, to kind of make little presentations. This is what the program is about. These are, again, 8th graders. They're all young, they're energetic, they're excited about these types of things. And I've gotten very good feedback from Mrs. Mercer and Mrs. Napoli, who are the teachers of those classes. Yeah, you know, a lot of kids were really excited. They really want to do this. So, you know, this is a very good source. Computer science classes, I already briefly mentioned that. That's another different route that I'm going to explore to see if we can get from them. Word of mouth, student to student. We have siblings in the classes. I had a student last year, their younger sibling is in this year. So it sounds like word of mouth between students is a pretty good way to get the word around as well. Teacher recommendations. I've had teachers come up to me and say, hey, I have a student, can you talk to them? They're really interested in this, they're a good student. Sure, you know, that's certainly one way. A very important one, guidance recommendations. Ultimately, guidance counselors are the ones that decide on their schedules, and this is something that we need to kind of address to make sure that they make this available, that they recognize that this is something that's out there, a program that's a good program that students may want to take. These other ones at the bottom here, I haven't really thought them through that much. These are, again, older students, the ones that are taking AP Statistics, AP Calculus, AP Economics. But these, again, might be viable sources to bring in a few more students to do, again, that math, computer science type of research. And the last thing is to have our own little in-house symposium somewhere near the end of the year where we can have our current students do a little presentation for up-and-coming students. And of course, you know, the community would be invited. We would do this probably sometime in the evening. And I think this would be a nice opportunity to celebrate what the students currently have done, as well as entice and encourage new students to get involved in the program as well. So this is half the equation. It's recruiting the students. But maybe even the more difficult part is how to retain the students, especially the younger ones, 13, 14 years old, and how to keep them interested. You know, the fire's been lit. Now, how to keep that flame going? And this is not necessarily that easy, and that'll be the next bullet here, is that everybody wants to go work in the outside labs. They want to work at Cold Spring Harbor Lab. They want to go to Stony Brook. Now you have to be 16 to do that. They've become very, very strict. Years ago, you could squeak a 15-year-old in, but now they're really cracking down on it. You must be 16 the day you begin to work there. And again, that doesn't help our younger students. The older ones, that's not a problem. So what I really need to think about is how can we provide more stimulating in-house experiences for these students? What can we do? We have a nice little research space at the high school. We need to kind of do something with that and kind of get more of them involved in doing things there that are not your mundane labs, that these are things that they're going to find exciting, interesting, keep them excited until they get to 16, and then we can look to place them into the labs. And so again, we have summer research programs. We could do something in-house possibly, just like I did with those girls up at Target Rock, or again, outside, but again, you have to be 16 to look at the outside possibilities then. So these are kind of, again, the retaining of students is just as important, if not even more important, than recruiting them. It's easy to get, it's easy to advertise. Once they're there, they want to see that this is for real and this is something that has merit, they're interested, and that they have something to do. So kind of this is at least my opinion of what the future plans are. So before I finish, I just want to make one quick advertisement here too. I'm also involved with the Brainstormers, which is our group that goes to the Long Island Challenge every year. And this is our Brainstormers team that was in the city during the taping. We won our first round again this year quite handily. In case you didn't catch it the first time around, there's a repeat of it, 6:30 p.m. Monday, February 20th. So if you have nothing better to do, tune into MSG Varsity and watch our students compete in round 1. And we'll be back for round 2 in March 6th. So thank you very much for your time.